the dominant language in
Estamos en vivo.
in the next 10, 20 years in America. So interesting, huh?
Yes. Okay, we are going to start. Bienvenidas y bienvenidos. Voy a dar una pequeña introducción de nuestra invitada el día de hoy. Ella es fundadora de Globally We Design, que es un grupo de reflexión independiente que discute temas sobre el futuro del diseño y organiza un foro de educadores para generar cartas de educación en diseño universal. A la fecha se han hecho dos. La más reciente es la Declaración de Johannesburgo, que se puede encontrar en la página web de esta asociación, que reitero el nombre es Globally We Design. Y bueno, Shashi ha trabajado por más de 20 años en el campo de la educación en diseño. So we are really happy to have you here, Shashi. Welcome. So how are you today?
Thank you. It's my pleasure and privilege. I'm great. Nice to see you all.
Thank you. So we know that you are interested in the field of design education. So can you tell us why you are interested in this field?
Design is the field of the future. We as creative beings, I mean, I believe everybody has potential to be extraordinary creatives. It's part of our intrinsic nature as human beings. And when we learn design in a very formal way, we have the ability to connect the thinking with creativity in order to get some extraordinary results for our world.
So nice. And let us know, what do you do at Globally We Design?
Globally We Design is, I'm a founder. The two of us, my business partner and I, founded Globally We Design. It is a labor of passion for us. Globally We Design rethinks everything in our culture today, because we think that we are very fortunate. We think that we're living in the most extraordinary period in human history ever. And probably not unlike one of those periods, such as the Renaissance that happened in the 1500s, where life was transformative. And so Globally We Design is our contribution, our thinking to say that into the future, we need to do it together, hence global, hence the we, and that togetherness is about the whole wide world. It is not about being within borders. Our world is very small. The pandemic demonstrated that to us. And of course, it's all about creativity and design.
Yes, so we should work together. And how do you undertake those activities, like connect all the different ideas through Globally We Design?
Well, I'll talk about myself. I am a practitioner. I have formally studied 3 disciplines. I did fine arts from Scotland, from the Edinburgh University, and then came to New York and went to Pratt and studied industrial design. I have a master's in industrial design, and then I have a master's in architecture, also from Pratt. And learning design in those respective areas, I became very aware that there is a foundational core that we share as designers. And then there are the uniqueness and an expertise that is important for every design discipline. So that was one foundational criteria that became important for me to practice. The other things that led to the inception, forming Globally We Design, had to do with always teaching. So right after my first master's degree, I was very young. I got asked to teach at Pratt in the master's program, and I started my teaching career. And since then have taught always, and at the same time practice design. And I love the connection between research and theory. but then putting it to practice in the real world, or in the real world as we all experience it. With the only difference is that while research and theory allow us to explore to all without limits in so many ways, practice has a lot of functionality to it. And we have time constraints, and we have financial constraints and material constraints, and just all kinds of constraints. And so thinking about those criteria, that has been what has shaped my personal experience throughout my life as a practitioner, as an educator. Or educator for me really was more about as a lifelong learner in a very formal way. And the third piece was wanting to find community, wanting to find a sense of belonging with those people that were, I don't know, that inspired me, that helped me expand myself. And then being a product of 3 continents, born in India, educated in Europe as a young adult, and then coming to the United States, I am both, I can fit anywhere in the world, but I never really belong in any one place either. And so the globally we design is this idea that sort of puts us in my business partner is similar, but he is Dutch from the Netherlands by origin, but we're very similar, and he's older than I am. And our experiences have been somewhat similar. So globally we design was an idea that said, well, if in my generation as the younger partner, this is normal, well, into our future, when we know that the demographics have shifted so much, and we know that mobility is on the rise, and we know that the next generations are expected to have 7 careers, full careers in a lifetime, and that the next generations are expected to practice in 5 to 6 countries, not just in one job in one country for a lifetime, that it was important for us to take our experiences and to think about the future. And so globally we design then was a very literal translation that deals with knowledge, new ways of looking at knowledge in a very deep way, positioning it at the forefront, which is what design is all about, at the frontier of, or shaping that edge of design that's vital, it's innovative. And at the same time, building a design community, because the more technology advances, the more humanity becomes precious. And so connecting with people around the world is we think, really critical.
Well, yes, that is a key issue that we would like to know more. Like, how do you create this community of designers around the world? Are there particular strategies?
I think that I think we all do it. I think everybody is already doing it. I think for me, the fact that I am this misfit in any one place, but really comfortable as being a citizen of the world, and therefore feel like I can belong anywhere, meant that I needed to I needed to find kindredness, connect with those people that were similar in their thought patterns. And so building community then for us is about connecting with like-mindedness. And at Globally We Design, it is a multi-tiered initiative. We know you through the education efforts, which is deep and structured and as wholesome as we can make it. But within the education field alone, we are connecting with like-minded people who are at the cutting edge of design, who are curious about the rest of our world, who want to connect with people across the world. And we want to do it in a multidisciplinary manner to solve transdisciplinary or to solve our world challenges that we all share from around the world with transdisciplinary solutions. So that's sort of our rationale, and that's how we do it. But fundamentally, it's just connecting. So a lot of the people that we have met that are part of the network are just people that you instantly connect with. And in Mexico, that's very real for us.
Okay. And based on the different activities that you have done at Globally We Design, what are the key findings that you have had and are related to design education?
We are encouraged, of course, delighted that some of the conceptual underpinnings for Globally We Design are that resonate with people across areas of research, applied education in the academic arena, but also in practice.
Okay. And you were saying that you are thinking in relation to the future of design. So what are the trends, opportunities, challenges that you can foresee related to design?
Gosh, many. I think that to be a designer, I'm sure that you all resonate with this, or well, I hope you all feel this, which is that to be a designer, we get excited with new possibilities. And we then as designers are, while we are creatives and we think creatively and we resolve challenges, that actually we're kind of inquisitive by nature. We are constantly observing, we are constantly analyzing, and we as a design species are constantly thinking about betterment. And so with that backdrop for us at Globally We Design, when we look at our world and we think about some of the future implications of design, with technology leading so fast, advancing so fast, we know from futurists that the world will change as much in the next 10 years as it has taken to change in the last 100. And so if that is happening because of what we've managed to invent in our own technology, well then as designers, as placemakers or communicators or and thinking about fashion and style and product that supports all of our communities, then we need to be thinking differently about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And so some of the implications of future design has to do with us absolutely having to do this. We don't have a choice. But it's also a tremendous opportunity, and in some ways we're so fortunate that we live in this time. And for us at Globally We Design, it's a time of extraordinary hope. We think this is an amazing time to be alive, as much as we appreciate that there are many challenges, but the challenges are so big that we get the opportunity to address the world in big ways. And well, the larger the challenge, the larger the team you have to have, and many more experts. And that's where Globally We Design strives, aims to bring everyone together.
Yes, we agree with different things that you have said. For instance, in the bachelor's program, we are discussing, and that is a question, what are the basic skills of a designer from your perspective? That is one. And the second one is, well, you are saying that we have these big challenges, no? And we have to think differently. Which skills we need to develop as designers?
Juan, I know this conversation is focused on sort of our conversation and with these questions, but I would love to know more of what you're all doing as well. So to answer your question, I think for us, the more we get involved with designers from around the world, the single most important criteria is our ability to think. And you know, we used to. I am older, and in my so maybe this is a locational issue. I don't know, but it seems that we used to have something we called common sense, and that's its own kind of intelligence. And then there is a learned literacy, and it seems to me that the knowledge that we need to do, the skills that need to, there are certainly skills that can all be learned that are both foundational to all of design disciplines, and at the same time, certain unique ways of thinking and skills we have to learn for individual disciplines. But one of the key components that we seem to be struggling with as designers, and I'm generalizing across the world, that we see is that there seems to be a little disconnect between our ability to think using common sense and then our ability to actually think about the right questions, which is where I say, well, it's got to be about thinking. And so conversely, what begins to happen is that we regurgitate. We become curators or we become stylists. And as long as we're stylists and curators, we're not really inventing. And that's a very big problem in design education. So it cannot be about formulaic design. You know, that, as an architect, here you have a plan and you can organize it in these different ways, and then that's all we do forevermore. That is not creativity. That's not the fullest capacity of the human creativity and intelligence, I think.
Okay, yes, we have to enhance our ability to think. And that is a big challenge because, well, there is not a particular formula. Or do you have like a particular ideas of how can we enhance the ability to think?
Well, so what we do, both in our practice and our Globally We Design, is that we think that one way to think is to just ask questions. There are no dumb questions. Let's not make assumptions. Let's ask as many questions as we can. And so one simple way is that we get given a brief, a design brief. In the practice, a client will give us a design brief in the same way that a faculty member will give a class a design brief in a design studio to I don't know, for outcomes. That brief, it doesn't matter who gives it to us. Part of the designer's role, and this is where common sense and the ability to think comes in, is that part of our role that we take very seriously in our practice is to bring all of our research to the foreground and to work with our client and or in a classroom to say, okay, here's a very simple brief, and it can be something as simple as, we're going to design a new restaurant. Okay, in that you've got communications, product, space making, place making, all of that. Well, we don't ask questions about, well, what style do you want and what colors do you want? And we try to understand the brand. We understand the aspirations. The design brief tells us all of the criteria that needs to be fulfilled. So that's kind of like the puzzle that needs to be poured into the space, but combining that with research, combining that with knowledge about sustainability, materials use, technical aspects, human behavior. How do we make a restaurant where people are going to do whatever it is? I don't know, spend 3 hours eating, or they need to be in and out quickly, whatever the criteria is. What are the perceptual, psychological, behavioral aspects that deliver those successes? For those, the design brief doesn't answer them. And that requires a lot of more questions. And so usually what we find is that we'll have a brief, we'll be given a brief, we start interpreting it. By the time we've asked a lot of questions, we actually end up with a very different brief. So we now have a reinterpreted brief, and that allows us a possibility for greater creativity. It also allows us to not design with a preconceived idea. So that I'm not going to go to look at the latest ways, the coolest projects people have done, or the best new project that was successful in hospitality. I intentionally selected restaurant for an example, which is that it seems to me that there is often following fashion. You know, with our social media, it's very easy to see a lot of images. We're bombarded with information. It's fleeting, it's quick. We make preferences very quickly based on the amount of information we can see very quickly, but we need to think more deeply. And so taking the brief and making it not just fit and work and accomplish what it needs to do for the next whatever cycle of project it is we're working with, but for it to really shape the behavior that we decide needs to be shaped, puts in a criteria that requires that we understand people differently. We understand business differently. We understand the making of things differently. It layers it in a different way, and I just think that maybe that works better.
Okay. Well, I have two more questions, and then I will ask the audience to ask you some questions. And the first one is related to transdisciplinary work, because that is something that we have been thinking as well. So, do you have some clues in how designers can integrate in transdisciplinary works or teams, or ideas that we can enhance in our students in order to prepare them to work in these transdisciplinary teams?
Well, transdisciplinary to us is, for us at Globally We Design, it's the solution.
Okay.
But what gets us there is an interdisciplinary approach. Meaning that if we compile in our gel lab, this is what we do. We compile teams that are from different disciplines. If you have 10 people, there are 10 different disciplines. They could be in the practice, they could be psychologist, anthropologist, an economist, scientist. They could be any kind of disciplinary background. But when we get experts that come together, or different designers that come together in an interdisciplinary manner, the ability to ask different questions. So I might, as an architect, industrial designer, artist, creative, whatever I call myself, I might ask questions that are particular to my area of interest. Somebody else can ask different questions, and therein is a possibility for a much larger potential for new spark. And so for us, the transdisciplinary team building is essential, but even more essential than that is our ability to collaborate. And for us, that's sort of it. It's such a broad word. It's a little bit like thinking. We all think we do it all the time. We think that if we can listen to somebody's opinion, we're now collaborating, but collaboration isn't that. And so I would say that I feel in our practice, we're called the collective. We were amongst the first group in the United States, there were one or two collectives around. Nowadays, there are a gazillion collectives, but we've spent the last 18 years trying to figure out what it means to collaborate when we come together. And at Globally We Design, in our gel labs, in the forum, which you'll hopefully witness firsthand, working together, collaborating, genuinely collaborating so that we can do it with respect. We can truly listen to one another. We can truly address questions that improve our product. That there is a cultural shift that needs to take place for that, and maybe that's the kind of shift that happens over time. It's kind of like we have visceral reactions in some ways, or we have knee-jerk reactions. We need to get past those with collaboration. There's something much deeper that needs to happen. And so put together a transdisciplinary team, we think, or at least this is our approach to it, and make sure that people are in an environment where they have to talk to each other. Time frame is short. You can't do it alone. You have to depend on your team members. That when something like that begins to happen, maybe we listen to each other, maybe we ask different questions because we're hearing different perspectives. And then if we have a problem that we have in common to solve as a team, the solution we might get may be a transdisciplinary one. But I don't think we can start out with transdisciplinary teams. I'm not sure that exists. It might, maybe somebody's doing it and I don't know. We haven't found it yet at Globally We Design or in the work that we do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan.
Then I will do this in Spanish. Bueno, si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor, ahorita es el momento de hacerla. Y bueno, sobre todo lo digo para las alumnas de la licenciatura. Pero bueno, Claudia, no sé si tú tienes alguna pregunta. Anika.
What are all the sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to type it because I think my connection is pretty unstable.
Okay. What are all the disciplines that you have, Juan, while she's doing that you have at UNAM?
Well, there are 44 bachelor programs. So we have maths, physics, political science, psychology, and in the Department of Architecture, we have the PhD program in architecture, in urbanism, master program in industrial design, in architecture, in urbanism, and the bachelor in the three, in architecture, industrial design, and urbanism. And there is another one that is, I don't know the name in English, architecture of the environmental architecture, I think.
Like landscape architecture.
Nice.
Yes.
That's a very rich institution. That's fantastic. Rich for the exploration. That's fantastic.
So we have a question here in the chat.
Yes, thank you, Claudia. I see your question. You're asking if in the near future design will see itself involved in tackling massive issues such as climate change, violence, migration. I would say to you that we are challenged to do that today, not in the near future. Climate change has been a concern for us. It's been a growing noise, louder and louder, probably for 60 years. It is not a new concern. We didn't get here because it happened yesterday. We got here because we knew that tangential, just in line with all of our industrial progress, were consequences. And those consequences, there were some intended. The intention was we would improve our life quality for all. We would give everybody the autonomy to drive a car, for instance. So transportation grew, but the unintended consequence we didn't think about, we didn't know. And so what we suffer with climate change has taken decades, if not more than 100 years to build, longer perhaps. And so the challenge we have now is that everything you have described there, climate change, violence, migration, I could add hunger, housing, knowledge, education. There are just so many challenges we have that are immediate, and design needs to find ways to solve them today. Not just design, but our politicians, our business folks, our scientists, of course, our educators. We need to all come together to attack some of these problems around the world now. That's a great question. Go ahead, please, Annika.
Hi. The question is about design for aging. What are your insights about this topic?
This is like climate crisis. This is a massive, massive topic. We know that there are only 10 countries in the world today, this is from recent research, where we still have population growth. We know that in most nations around the world, population is aging and not increasing. So we have less, the ratio of old to young is bigger, getting bigger and bigger, with the aging growing fast. And in places like Japan, that has been a problem already for 2-3 decades. So the aging is interesting now. It comes about because we made such incredible advances with our medicine, with our science, our food, we all live longer. That's fantastic. But with us living longer, we also have put great pressures on our environment, on our farming, on our natural resources, on many resources. So now we suffer this consequence that says, okay, so if the average person lives so now I know that there are demographics and there are statistics that have changed more recently with COVID, but the statistics that have been in place for a while for next generations. So for Gen Z millennials, you're expected to live to 120. I might be expected to live to 100. Okay, well, what is that going to do for my lifestyle? Who's going to take care of me? Do I need to work? Do I have resources to support myself? Am I going to be mobile enough? So there are some very, very large questions, societal questions. This is partly why when I was saying that we are in this very pivotal moment in our history, it's because we have these extraordinary big questions that require we all come together to answer. The young generations with the older generations. So the vitality, energy, creativity, enthusiasm of youth, but through all the experiences of all the other generations, this ability to work together to use experience, wisdom, knowledge, thinking ability to try to solve these problems.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I have another question that is related to artificial intelligence. Have you identified a global trend that links artificial intelligence with design?
Yeah, my goodness. Yes, we are carrying our artificial intelligence in our hands every day. This is designed. It's changed our life. I'm holding up my cell phone. It's changed our life. I have a computer at my fingertips 24/7, as does every single person on this, most people on planet Earth today. So artificial intelligence, this is it. Now this is it in its sophisticated, simple, computerized form. But when we think of AI, we also think about robotics and moving, and we've seen lots of these sci-fi movies where there are these robots that look like humans. That's at the other extreme of our simple devices that we have in our hand today. It is a growing trend. It is not going anywhere. The artificial intelligence capacity to solve problems are exponentially greater than the human capacity, but they're different problems. Artificial intelligence will compute faster than you and I can, faster than a team of 10 people can together. But what artificial intelligence cannot do is to frame the right questions, to edit the iterations of the computations. That's what is the creativity of the human being. So in our world, the trend is that so the reason why our world will change faster in the next 10 years is because artificial intelligence is expanding that rapidly. It is in every single aspect of our life. We can 3D build homes these days. In China, they were building homes like 5-6 years ago, $5,000, concrete, 3D printed. For a family, they could do it in 24 hours. But they're not designed. They're a template that you plug into the computer and it 3D prints based on that template. So they're efficient, they're fast, they may solve the housing crisis temporarily, but they don't look beautiful. They look very ordinary. Human beings don't want to be homogenized. We want to reflect our identity, our culture, our context. And so who's going to solve those problems? And that's where I'm sort of sharing a couple of very simplistic examples, but artificial intelligence has a capacity that we are not keeping abreast with yet, I believe. I believe that perhaps, and so this is why at Globally We Design, we focus on education first, which is that education is lagging behind to where industry is already moved. We've already gone there. So we can no longer teach in ways that is just systems. We have to think fast on our feet. We have to be able to think. We have to be able to throw out ideas. Ideation has to be fast. We have to know we have to know what we're looking for. We have to know our own humanity. Well, as human beings, we are creative. Computers are only as creative as the programs that we've loaded into them. But they're learning super fast. So if we don't learn how to be much better creatives, ask the smartest questions, we cannot stay ahead of the technology. If we only learn how to solve very simplistic problems in a way the computer already can, then our master will become the computer. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, we don't know the unintended consequence of technology yet. Mm-hmm. Just as we didn't know when we started to build cars and every single person could get a car and it was a gauge of our own prosperity. But we do know that in a very fast changing world, we have seen movies like Radio Player One, where the images that Hollywood shares with us that are researched, where the environment begins to look ugly and we disappear into our virtual realities. Questions we need to ask is that what we want? Is that our future? Is that the next iteration of our own humanity? Or can we do something about it now? And that's where, linking it back to your first question, Juan Carlos, was that's where the creativity of the designer is so essential. Not art, not me just expressing myself as an artist, that's important, but a designer that thinks ahead and says, that kind of a dystopian future we don't want. So how do we flourish with virtual reality building? We're already creating parallel universes that are virtual. The metaverse exists. Digital currency exists. We've already invented all that. So how do we make sense of it? How do we humanize it? Where do we put ourselves in the middle of it? And those questions are vital now, so that we can think of very broadly about the unintended consequences, which then are the problems that we need to give ourselves to try to resolve. And that also then comes back for me to being the ability to think. Common sense and learned knowledge.
Yes. So there are lots of questions to reflect
Yes.
on your chat. So I don't know if there are other questions from the audience, because we have very young students here, and maybe that is.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you. I think this is like a personal question, I think, but how to not feel overwhelmed with all of these problems that we have already. Like we already talked about violence, migration, climate change. Like it's like as a student, I feel like I want to solve everything, but at the same time, it's like I know that my possibilities are not that. So how to manage this? How to manage in order to make something, even if it is not big or it's meaningful, but like I don't know how to manage it.
Patricia, you are so I have to say this up front, you guys. I think so I live in this space that is kind of out there and I'm very comfortable in it, but I know that when I'm talking to even our own team, sometimes it can get overwhelming. So the fact that you even have questions to me is really impressive. You guys are amazing. So thank you for that. Patricia, your question is a particularly poignant one for me because yes, you're right. So life seemed to be a bit simpler when I was a student, although not really. I still had the same challenges of thinking about, well, what's my career going to be and where am I going to live? And there were other questions that were equally overwhelming, but different. So the advice I think I would give you is that one, frame it in the context of opportunity is exponential here. Rather than, oh my goodness, the problems are immense. They always are. But so what's brilliant about this is that we've got extraordinary opportunities. Now, while our jobs and the way we used to do them have rapidly changed because of our AI, because of our technology development, there are also a gazillion new jobs that are being invented. There are new jobs happening every day. So if I were in your shoes, if I had to do it all over again in this moment in time, what's really exciting is that, well, maybe that's frightening for you. For me, from where I sit, what's really exciting is that I don't have to choose a career path that is conventional. I know that by the time, well, if I were in your shoes, or what I know now in my own shoes, I know that between now and the next 10 years, as I get older, a whole new possibility opens up for me to not retire if I want to not retire. And I don't want to retire. So for you, in your question, if I were you, I would look for what are the questions that are most meaningful for me? Which of these kinds of massive areas makes my heart sing for an area that I want to be really involved in a deep way? Is it housing? Is it aging? Is it the climate change? Is it new technologies? Is it there are so many of them. Is it food science? What is it? What is it that makes me feel where I can feel a connection? Then I would dig in. I would come at it from a place of optimism. Try and not overwhelm you. There's so much information in the world today that we can't but feel overwhelmed and frightened, and we feel like life is moving so fast and oh my gosh, I can't get anything done and I need balance. Well, you know what? Part of balance is just maturing. It's a difference between being, so you know what it's like to be around a 5-year-old. Balance is very different for them. Balance is very different for a 10-year-old. So now you're in a particular age group, but by the time you're 10 years older, your balance never goes, we still have to balance it. The challenges get different. And so I guess what I'm saying is that one of the biggest strengths we have is to lean into the fact that human beings have been around for so long. And we have overcome so many transformations in this world. And that with our abilities, with our heart, and with our minds, and with our choices, we choose to be optimistic. We choose to remain creative. We choose to remain hopeful. We choose to address problems that are based in human goodness, a good conscience. I don't know, sort of things that matter to me, I suppose. So I find tremendous optimism when I think like that for me. So please, we need you. I know I hear that all the time, that the next generations are feeling overwhelmed and frightened, but you guys, you're living in one of the most extraordinary periods in our history that is transformative. You get to shape it. There's nothing more exciting to me than that. It's a great moment just one step at a time, one breath at a time. Think about your passion and only focus on that. Don't think about all these massive challenges. Think about what do you want to resolve? What's the one area that really intrigues you? It'll change. You may have 20 different areas you explore, but the one area will take you to the next. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's a great question. Thank you.
Is there another question?
Yep. What do you think about the framework methodology proposed by Keys Doors for design? I was recently watching some videos about it, and they started it as this will be the methodology that will replace design thinking. So I want to know what's your opinion.
Well, so I'm going to say something that you please don't follow. Don't take my thinking on this. I've always been a bit of a maverick. I don't really follow any trends or any methodologies. I try to make sense of it for myself. And for me, what's worse, so then in the creative field, that's really helped me because it continued to allow me to be most well expressed. And so what I do know about some of those frameworks is that with a level of development, that the way we're doing things right now will transform as we continue to evolve our own technologies, which means that we need to be a step ahead of it. But when we think about what hasn't changed. Human nature doesn't change that fast. Our nature hasn't changed. So if our nature hasn't changed and we ground it back into, well, then who are we? So I always use this example a lot. I like the old-fashioned kind of analogies that were told to me when I was a student, actually 3 times over when I was a student by different faculty members, that always put yourself in the shoes of the other person, whoever you're trying to solve the problem for. And when we do that, we begin to get a deeper understanding. So play role, pretend that you're that person, you've been given this problem. Why are they asking this question? Rather than trying to rely on knowledge that I can't access or I can't learn fast enough, I sort of do it conversely. And so then the power always sits within. And I'm a very, very, very big believer that if we all are so incredibly empowered that we can create the world we imagine, which is a singular role of the designer, well, then imagine the world we want to create. So I'm sure I didn't, I'm sure I didn't answer your question properly enough, but that's probably the best I can do on that answer. It's a great question, but that's the best answer I have.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, it has been a great discussion. I just will have a final question for you. Can you tell us what will happen between Globally We Design and UNAM the coming year?
Oh my goodness, we're so excited. Yes, UNAM has been partnering with us to advance the exploration of design knowledge in these integrated ways through the multidisciplinary into transdisciplinary thinking in the Globally We Design Gel Lab Design Studio program. But one of the things that we do in tandem, so the Gel Lab is all for students, and then the other side of it is bringing the educators together to equally be provoked, to provoke ourselves, to put ourselves in uncomfortable positions in the same way that the Gel Lab does for the students, where you're just thrown into just an incredibly complex situation. And you have to rely on each other, and you're across the world. Everybody's all over the world, nobody from your own country with you. And so rapid learning. And we very quickly understand what we have in common, and we very quickly learn how to problem solve. Well, the Redesign Ed Educators Forum is what UNAM will host from April 27th to April 29th, sort of 3 days. And we will have the Globally We Design Educators platform. We'll have between 75 to 100 educators convene, but it'll be a multidisciplinary. We may have some students as well from different parts of the world, representatives of the Gel Lab. And we will explore in a very intensive way some of the questions that you all are asking. We will explore new ways of learning, new ways of sharing knowledge, new ways of under rapid fire learning for ourselves, and its implications on education for the long term. We have an outcome for that forum, which is Universal Design Education Charter, which was started by the participants of the forum in 2019 in our Singapore gathering. Every year, the forum goes to a different location, a different continent, and people travel to it. It's a neutral place. And so we ask tough questions, and then we continue to collect information and add to it. And so we will have an outcome that will be called the Mexico City UNAM design education declaration. So we will declare some outcomes, and we're very pleased with, we're looking forward to what that will be, but that's an exciting thing that happens. But from our perspective, the globally redesigned community, it is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity to get to know UNAM, to get to know Mexico City, to get to know Mexican culture. So while we expand, we put ourselves in this position of learning under fire. At the same time, we're enjoying being in your city, in your university, in your country. And I have to tell you that UNAM was selected by popular demand. Participants in our Johannesburg Redesign Ed Educators Forum really wanted to go to Mexico. And so we are just, we feel very privileged that you have said yes, that you're really open-minded, that you're very progressive, and you're warm-hearted, and you're generous, and you have said, we will host this forum. And I just think it's going to be an extraordinary experience for us all. It's really exciting, Juan Carlo, and I very much look forward to meeting you there and seeing as many of your community as we can, as well as having this international audience, very select, highly rarefied audience of design thinkers come together in Mexico City in next April.
Yes, so you will be very welcome here in Mexico City and at UNAM.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to have you. So thank you very much for this conversation. It was really interesting, and we have lots of questions and things to reflect based on your lovely discussion.
Thank you so much. So I'm sorry, I'm not into answers. I don't think as a culture today, I think as designers constantly questioning, we have a lot of questions together. So your questions are the same questions I have and we have here. And I thank you so much for the opportunity to share them with you.
Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You guys are the best. Have a great, great rest of the day. And Juan Carlo, we'll talk again soon.
Yes.
Thank you. See you, everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Adios.
See you. Adios.
Bye.